On this episode of the Carolina Sports Guy, we're going to dive in, folks, and look at the 8 people chosen as captains for the Carolina Panthers 2021 season. That's right, folks, I said 8. Little many. Before we get into today's content, make sure you subscribe. It doesn't cost anything. Pound that like button, hit that bell notification to be notified of future videos like these on the Panthers. And by all means, folks, leave comments. I love the dialogue. And in case you haven't had a chance to do so, I got another channel, That Carolina Guy. Go over there and check me out. Talk music, food, just anything in general other than the Panthers and sports. Okay, folks. And kind of look at this and the Carolina Panthers a few days ago. It's been a few days. And I wanted to wait to make a video. I wasn't going to make one. And then I decided I would. I'm going to give a shout out to Dave and Rashad of Panther Nation podcast because they already did a video on it. And it kind of really made me think about what I was going to say in my video. And for the most part, I'm spot on. I kind of agree with their assessment. A couple little things I differed on with what they had to say. But, you know, it's an opinion. And for the most part, I think we're in the same ballpark as far as these captains go. Now, I did think 8 were a lot. I go back in Rivera Day. Rivera had 5 or 6, if I'm not mistaken. And I didn't even think about, like Rashad said in the video, that, you know, Cam did not get to be a captain his first couple of years here. He had to really wait his turn. Went to the veteran presence of the team, and that's kind of the way it's going to go. But just a list of captains, and we'll go through them. Brian Burns, Shaq Thompson, Dante Jackson on the defense. We've got Sam Darnold, Taylor Moton, Christian McCaffrey, Matt Paradis on offense, and then J.J. Janssen, special teams. Now, first, let me go ahead and take care of the defense. I see they took one person off of each one of the positions. When you get defensive backs, you get defensive line, you get linebackers. So that made a lot of sense. Choosing Brian Burns, I think he does lead by example. You could have taken a veteran presence like a DeQuan Jones, but this is his first year here. Brian Burns is coming into his 3rd year, and this could be a very big breakout year for Brian Burns. I think this is the year, if he plays his cards right and does well, he could end up being a Pro Bowler. But I have no problem with Brian Burns because of the way he leads by example. Shaq Thompson. Now, one thing about it, Shaq Thompson, I believe, is the last player on the defensive side of the ball. And it may be offense other than Janssen that's from the Super Bowl 50 team. He was a rookie that year. So, you know, signing that long-term extension, he's been vocal in some games last year where the defense didn't step up. You know, he's not what Thomas Davis or Luke Kuechly were, but he did learn from those two. So I have no problem. I know Jermaine Carter being in the middle could have been a captain. It's kind of shocked he didn't get a nod. I would even have problems if you'd have put Carter, because of the middle linebacker in that position, being the leader on defense, than Brian Burns. But I have no problem with it. I'm not really going to knock it. And Shaq Thompson, because of his longevity, probably deserves the captainship. And he was a captain last year. Dante Jackson. Now, I love this one because Dante Jackson, I've seen him working with the coaches. He's led by example. He's been very vocal at practice, training camp, these games. I know he's looking for a big payout. And I do hope with a team that does it, if he performs the way he can perform. Now, he had some injury last year, but I do see Dante Jackson taking the reins here, and I have no problem with him in that secondary. I think Chin being a leader is great, but he's just kind of that. He's kind of like what Peppers was. Well, Peppers didn't really want to be a captain when he was here. He just led by his play. And I think that's what you have with Chin. But I think Dante Jackson's very vocal, and I think he's really proved to me in training camp and these practices how he can lead these guys and get them ready to go. So the defense, I have no problem with those 3. Now, offense, CMC, Christian McCaffrey, of course. He's probably your biggest star player, your biggest athlete. He was hurt last year, but he's definitely one of the very few guys that we have the top 5 at his position, with no doubt. So I had no problem with CMC being a captain. Taylor Moton, of course, he just got the big contract. He's going to be here long term. He is our best offensive lineman. He's kind of a quiet guy, but he leads by example. So I have no problem with him. Matt Paradis is the one guy. I know when he was with the Broncos, he was a captain. And I know maybe the guys looked to him in the locker room, and maybe I'm looking at because his play needs to be better. But other than that, I just think that with having Taylor Moton on the line, adding another offensive lineman when the offensive line is our weakest area of need, I just had a problem with him. I mean, and I don't really have a problem as much. I just think 8 captains is a lot. I think we could have done with 7. And Paradis could have stepped back. Sam Darnold. Now, I know a lot of people will say, oh, they just gave it to Darnold because he's a quarterback. I'm not in the locker room. I'm not, at the facility every day. In fact, I'm not there at all. But what Matt Rule and coaches feel, they might not have seen this in Bridgewater last year. Maybe they see a leadership of him taking a role. He might not be aggressive or jumping out like Dante Jackson, but maybe his play and his camaraderie with the guys and getting them together. And they are trying to pump his confidence. Maybe by making him a captain. And he's got CMC in the backfield with him. He's got a slew of receivers, and a safety valve, and a good tight end in Arnold. You got a couple of, even though our offensive line's a weak point, he's got a couple of good guys that are captains on the offensive line that can help him in the huddle. And you got a great defense. So maybe they're really trying to pump him up. And I know that was one of the things that Rashad said, that they're just giving it to Darnold because he's a quarterback. I see it a little bit, but at the same time, I don't think they're just going to give it to him to give it to him. So let's just hope that he's really shown behind the scenes that he has been a leader, because guys have really talked well about him as far as in camp and how he's led and shown. So we'll go that route. And finally, J.J. Janssen. A lot of people might have a problem. How can this guy, who they brought in a rookie to replace him, how are they going to make this guy a captain? Well, it's simple. He is the oldest member on the team. He is a guy that if he plays his full year, all 16 games, he's only going to be about a dozen games away from being the all-time games played for the Carolina Panthers in their history. I don't know if he'll get there, because after this year, his job's really up in the air, especially with them really trying to promote Thomas Fletcher. But they draft a guy to take his place. It doesn't happen. Janssen doesn't flinch. And he would have got a job if we cut him, folks. There's no doubt about it. So Joey Slye in the preseason game knew he was going to be cut. You could tell by the way he kicked. He had the yeeps or yipes, whatever you want to call it, hit him. And I just saw Janssen on the sideline put his arm around him to console the guy. And J.J. Janssen, by being a captain, he's the captain of their special teams. He is a veteran presence. I mean, he's gone down even in preseason on special teams, making tackles and stuff. So I have no problem with Janssen, with his veteran leadership, what he's been through, how he showed these team and coaches that it's not easy to get rid of him. And I think it speaks volumes even of Matt Rule to say, hey, he's a guy we tried to replace him. We couldn't. He's our number one guy on long snapper. Hey, he's leading by example. Let's make him our captain. And I do think that is the kind of character guy you need. If there's anybody left in this building that reminds me of a Thomas Davis or a Luke Kuechly, or even when Cam was in his heyday leading this team, that leads by example with veteran presence, like Ryan Khalil and Jordan Gross. It's a guy like J.J. Janssen. So I have no problem with that. Okay, what do you guys think? Do you have a problem with having 8 captains this year? Or is any one of these guys that you would not have wanted to be captain? Is there somebody you think should have been deserving of the captainship? Leave me some comments. Pound that like button. Hit that bell notification to be notified of future content like this. And by all means, subscribe. Doesn't cost anything. I will see you on another episode of